The following program is intended for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, sir. What can I do for you?
I need to use the bathroom.
Hitman Codename 47 is a stealth action game developed by Danish studio IO Interactive and published by Eidos. The story follows Agent 47, a barcoded, suit-clad, bald-headed man, as he travels the globe working for an organization known as the International Contract Agency, or the ICA for short, partaking in what I can only describe as a series of escalating ordeals in order to kill a host of increasingly weird dudes, immersing himself in the dark and shady world of the gig work economy. The story behind this game's development does not begin with IO Interactive, but instead with a Los Angeles video game publisher named Scavenger Incorporated, and two developer teams under their wing by the name of Lemon and Syrinx. Both of these developers worked primarily to develop Sega Saturn titles while working under Scavenger. Syrinx would release 3 games in total: a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up called Subterranea in 1994, the top-down helicopter-based shooter Red Zone, also in 1994, and the hamster ball racer Scorcher in 1996, while Lemon would only release one title, being 1996's mech-based shooter Amok. The two studios would continue to work under Scavenger until 1998, when Scavenger went bankrupt. After the bankruptcy, one of 3 employees of Lemon, Jacob Anderson, would pair up with the leftover developers from Syrinx and form a studio named Rito Moto. After its formation, Rito Moto would conduct a joint venture with the Danish film studio Nordisk Film in order to create IO Interactive. IO Interactive's first project was set to be a fantasy MMO named Rex Dominus. But before Rex Dominus could leave the conceptual stages, Nordic requested that instead of jumping headlong into a task as daunting as an MMO, that the team work on something smaller in scale. So IO set off to make a simple, straightforward third-person shooter, which would take heavy inspiration from the film works of John Woo, like most good third-person shooters do. So the team would begin development on Hitman the game, later retitled as Hitman Codename 47. Despite most of the team having worked primarily on Sega Saturn games back at Scavenger, Codename 47 would be developed solely for the PC. This was due in part to the team's growing interest in PC hardware and its rapidly advancing 3D technology. Whilst developing the yet-to-be-named Glacier engine, the team would put extensive efforts into how enemy corpses would fall and tumble in real time, while being affected by various elements in the game's world, instead of solely relying on generic death animations. Codename 47 would be one of, if not the first game to use advanced ragdoll physics. It's these advanced physics that would catch the eyes of one Jonas Enroth of Eidos. Enroth, who had worked as executive producer on Looking Glass's Thief titles, approached the team to negotiate a publishing deal with Eidos. Enroth would also suggest that the team change the focus of the game from a John Woo-inspired dude shooter into a slower, more tense experience, taking cues from the aforementioned Thief series as well as Ion Storm's Deus Ex, which Eidos had also published. With these changes in mind, Hitman Codename 47 would begin to take shape. The game's focus would shift from fast-paced action into slower, stealthier experience, more resembling its contemporaries at Eidos. The guns-blazing carnage of a Hong Kong action flick traded in for social stealth, where hiding bodies of your foes and changing disguises in order to sneak into hostile areas would be the keys to one's success. Codename 47 would release on November 19th, 2000, to somewhat middling reviews. Many would laud the game for its dark and gritty atmosphere and unique gameplay, while others would rightly criticize its scuffed controls, lack of in-mission saving, and wonky AI.
Wake up, my friend. It's the dawn of a new day, and you have things to do. I will guide and teach you, and you will learn by doing. Always remember, I am not only your guide and mentor, but think of me as the person you trust the most. The skills you learn today will not only be useful, but vital for performing the tasks I have chosen for you. You see, you have been carefully selected. You are very special to me. You are learning fast, my friend. I knew you would. Now, go and find some clothes to put on. Very good.
So I says, crazy, I says. I hardly know her.
You will soon be there. Good. It's time
Whew. Okay, I think I'm ready to be discharged. So that was weird. Anywho, let's start killing people for money. First up on our big list of very special people is the head of the Red Dragon Triad, Nguyen Van Phuc. Unfortunately, we can't go straight for our man as he's too well protected, so we're gonna have to do something about that. We're gonna do that by making a little tension between the opposed Triad clan, the Blue Dragon Syndicate. Give it a couple bullets and one real hot potato, and we're gonna add a little bit of banter to Halo Game Night. Our first task is to disrupt a business talk the clans have set to have in the park, with the Red Dragon Negotiator being today's lucky boy. To be honest with you, while this mission is very brief, it is quite satisfying. Sometimes a man just needs to act alone, you know? For your mental health. Nothing does the mind better than a little bit of fresh air and a good vantage point. After that, we bring some Irish fireworks to Chinese New Year. The next mission is a bit of a test, and that test being, have you seen The Godfather? Now, while placing a gun inside of a bathroom prior to a hit may be one of the greatest feats of Italian tactical ingenuity since the time of the Senate, it's not exactly rocket science. Then we can hit Van Phuc. Killing him isn't all we have to do, though. We also have to deliver a statue that's in a safe to our plug at the herbal shop, and rescue a CIA agent who's being held in the basement.
This place seems quiet. Where do I go for some action?
You could try the second floor. I'm sure you will find what you need there, sir.
Let's... Oh, hold on a minute. Now, where was I?
Welcome to our den of iniquity. It is our business doing pleasure with you.
That's a good line. I bet she practices that in front of the mirror. So, the lady here knows the combination to the safe and will give it to us in return for sneaking her out of here. Jesus, what are you, throwing her or something? Calm down. What did he mean by that? Now for the agent. Oh look, the spokes have little dragons on them. Now, you're gonna want to have to listen to the agent because he tells you the location of the safe. At this point, I wasn't aware that there was more than one, so I skipped his dialogue, like an asshole, because I had already done this part about a dozen or so times. So, when I couldn't open the safe, that led me to improvise. I only found out after everyone was dead that I needed to open a different safe. Once the deed is done, we escape on a speedboat. Spoiler warning, fill in this part of the script later. Okay, so spoiler warning. If you don't want to know how the rest of this story plays out, go to here. God damn it, I always try and do these off the cuffs. I really should just start writing these in. What the fuck am I doing? With our stay in the Middle Kingdom concluded, it's time to move to Colombia.
Colombia. From what I've heard, even the butterflies are corrupt and smuggling drugs.
You know, this is my first time playing this far into the game, and I have to say, this jungle is actually pretty damn impressive for 2000. I read that they had used the same tile mapping system that they used to make the levels in Amok, to make the levels for this game, and that let them, like, make bigger levels to run on low-end systems. I don't know what any of that means, but I wrote it down. The next hit is a drug smuggler named Pablo Belisario. Yeah, that. But he's holed up in a compound deep in the jungle. So, first thing we have to do is find a safe way into that compound. To do that, we're going to ask for some help from the local native tribe who with Pablo has been warring. Who Pablo has been warring with. God damn it. Pablo has been shipping his drugs in hollowed-out idols that are held dear by the natives, one of which was in a plane that crashed nearby. So, we're going to get that idol and bring it to the chief in a show of good faith. And hopefully, we don't get immediately blow-darted, because, these guys don't always like company. Alright, settle down there, hotshot. We're delivering mail, not summoning rain. Turns out the cartel also kidnapped the chief's brother, so we're gonna have to get him back as well. Open gunfights isn't really this game's strong suit, but luckily.
They can't see you if you don't make eye contact.
The chief tells us about a secret path that can lead us to Pablo's compound, but that path is protected by the tribe's god of death, Tezcatlipoca. And despite being friend-shaped, is an angry god, and angry gods demand sacrifice.
Back up!
Good kitty. Don't ever say we don't give you the good stuff.
3 yummy fish flavors!
So after finessing the feline filter, we find ourselves at the compound. And in order to break bad, we have to break in, kill Pablo, and blow up his drug lab. Then escape on a biplane. And there are a lot of dudes here. There are a concerning amount of dudes here. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. So it's easy enough to get into the compound. As long as I'm not acting suspicious, nobody should really bother me. What worries me is how things are gonna go when I have to get loud. 47 is made of the same tissue paper that everybody else is, and the guns are pretty inaccurate at range, so picking people off at a distance is tough. I can't even get into the mansion without getting shooed away. I wonder what's... Tezcatlipoca smiles upon their servant. Thy will be done. In what can only be described as an unspeakable act of cruelty, I do not believe this is how we're supposed to beat this level. As much as my bloodlust wants, nay, demands, to be satiated at a silky smooth 6,000 RPM, I don't see this as a winning strategy. You can try, and God knows I've tried, but the second anyone sees you with the minigun, the entire camp is going to be on your ass. So no, we don't get to kill all these people with a minigun. This fucking sucks. And edging me with the feigned promise that my humble consumer-grade violence can be supersized to military-grade does not help. Not only is this a largely barren map filled with assholes, but we also get a weird, out-of-place boss fight. Pablo here is on so much cocaine that he shrugs off shots from most weapons, even the 7.62s. Lousy commie bullets. So, after a damn near hour and a half of trial and error, I break and I look at a guide. And do you want to see how maddeningly simple the solution to this mission is?
Hola, Hancho. Say hello to my little friend.
Remember, it's the slow blade that penetrates the tweaker. Awful. Just fucking awful. Next, our journey takes us to a grand hotel in Budapest in order to kill a terrorist named Franz Fuse. Oh, and that's France with a T. Frantz. There's some sort of fancy shindig going on at the hotel with all, the big world leaders attending, and France is going to try and blow it up, which normally really wouldn't be our problem. But who else is going to hire us to do shady shit if all the politicians die at the same time? So, our mission is to kill Fuse and deliver the bomb to the agency.
Made a reservation for 2 days.
And what was the name, please?
Mr. Tobias Reaper.
First, what we have to do is get a master key. Luckily, cleaning staff has the bad habit of leaving the keys in the door while they go in and clean, so it should be pretty easy. And I know this is probably just a me thing, but janitors leaving keys unattended indoors is a thing that resonates with me personally, but so on and so forth. Once we have the key, we can sneak into Fuse's room, kill his guards, then him, and then grab the bomb suitcase. This guy was based on a real terrorist from Austria named Franz Fuse. He apparently was a serial bomber who set off a series of mail bombs and IEDs between 1993 and 1997. He was also known as known as Austria's Unabomber. After murdering a dentist, we grab our bomb. Now, all that's left to do is slip out undetected. Shit. Okay, we can try that again. Remember, be subtle.
No.
Oh, thank God, that was close. We go from Budapest to Rotterdam in order to scratch off the second last name on our list, a Russian arms dealer named Arkady Jaganov. Imagine getting run up by a gang called the Flaming Windmills. Yo, run those pockets. How's the grain on them Jordans, my guy? Fucking nerds. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, but the warehouse with the guard dogs and all the armed gang members seems like the place to be. Alright, here comes our plug. He looks like a Chaos Dwarf cosplaying a pimp named Slickback. Hey, you don't need to go in there. Hey, I got the briefcase right here. Huh. He doesn't seem to mind all the dead people. A man of focus, I see. Now on to Jaganov's ship. But Intel tells us that he's got an old-school nuke on board, and he's willing to arm it the second he catches wind of anything suspicious. So we have to sneak onto the ship, kill him and everybody on board, disarm the nuke, and then sail the ship out to international waters. It may sound easy, but Jaganov is a paranoid man, and the dock has checkpoints with guards and snipers, and they're everywhere. And these guards won't let you pass, no matter what you're wearing. You can try killing them all, and God knows I did, but overwhelming violence is not the answer here, and it only took me damn near 2 hours before I realized that. As it turns out, in order to progress, 47 has to utilize a special Kenpo technique he picked up in China. We're also going to need another hot potato for Jaganov's car, so we don't have to chase him down when he gets alerted, because he will get alerted. That was quite the ordeal, but now it's smooth sailing. We end our journey where it all started, in Grippy Sock Jail. Our orders are to kill a doctor named Kovacs. First thing you're probably going to notice is that this American hospital has a lot of guns lying around, which normally wouldn't be too concerning, but it is considering the fact we're in Romania. There's something fishy about this whole thing. It's almost like we're being set up. Oh! When we confront the doctor, 47 recalls him as the man with the syringe, and Kovac babbles something about barely being involved with the projects or some other shit. We kill him just in time for some tactical goons to bust in. Whilst skulking about, we come across our old CIA buddy from Hong Kong. He says he knows about a secret lab in the basement and can lead us there. Once we take the elevator down, we find ourselves back in Himmler's funhouse. Hey, remember me? So, you might be asking yourself, what the hell is going on? Well, let me tell you. I haven't been talking about the post-mission cutscenes, so I'll shed some light on what's been happening. After every hit, you get a cutscene of a bunch of dudes in a dark room talking about somebody. These guys are referred to as the Five Fathers. You've got Van Fock, Pablo, Fuse, and Jaganov. All these guys met while enlisting in the French Foreign Legion, and at some point in time after that, they met up with our shady German friend, Dr. Ortmeyer, who offered to make them their very own personal clone, a modern-day Prometheus, the world's best assassin, a genetically modified killer who could be controlled to do their bidding, a golem made of flesh and bone, puppeted by shadowy masters to nefarious ends. Genesis, written in weird science. Man's hubris, acting a mocking shroud to divine creation. All of which is a fancy way to say that all these guys off into a cup and gave it to the fucking Operation Paperclip diversity hire over here so he could make the Manchurian Candidate. This project, headed by Dr. Ortmeyer, was a success, and 47 is the 47th attempt at this project. Surprise, surprise. Ortmeyer has been having us clean up any loose ends concerning the project, and brought 47 here to get murked by his SWAT team as the final loose end. 47 being the only clone that he couldn't control directly. Lucky for us, Ortmeyer calling in his kill streak didn't exactly work, so we can have our final standoff in this weird German's creepy basement.
At the end of the week's work, when God was tired, I greatly improved on all the built-in flaws. I proved to the whole world who's right and decide who will be left. A little play on words there, my boy. I know you like that sort of thing.
Oh, f***ing Fivehead over here's got jokes. So, you can fight his Temu brand Smiling 47 clones until you find an opening long enough to drag one of the clone corpses into the barcode scanner room. Then, if you're lucky enough not to get immediately domed by the remaining clones...
Such a comfort to see.
You finally get to meet face-to-face with Herr Doctor himself. I do appreciate that at any time you can dome this idiot during his stupid f***ing monologue. So, how Hitman games usually work is that you're dumped into an open level and given at least one target to kill, and then you're kind of like left to your own devices on how you want to do that. There are usually a myriad of ways the player can go about performing their hit. The levels in Codename 47 aren't really like that. They feel less like an open world where like the player can choose how to take on their targets, and more like a puzzle box. Yes, you are free to explore around and discover things at your leisure, at least most of the time, but more often than not, there is a very specific, certain way each level is intended to be played. And you don't really get a lot of freedom of choice in, how you want to do it. It feels more like solving a puzzle, like you're unraveling the way that this whole thing is supposed to go down. There are some levels that feel more like a genuine Hitman level, like Tools of the Trade and the Li Hong assassination are definitely standouts. Actually, I really enjoyed the entire Hong Kong arc. I thought it was pretty solid. Probably the best chunk of the game, in my opinion. They've got a lot of detailed maps with places to explore and multiple objectives. Unfortunately, these levels are the minority. Most of how this game is structured is that you'll have a few levels of build-up that lead to an assassination. And it was with these build-up levels that I had the most issues with. Everything after the Hong Kong arc is very hit or miss. The Columbia arc is especially bad. It's a long jaunt through the jungle, and then doing an Uber Eats delivery for a big cat, and then you end with this weird out-of-place boss fight in just this not fun level. It's not... It really is a weird lull in the game, and it's disappointing because it's a quarter of it. The levels are either too linear or too focused on open combat, and there's not enough to do or really any reasons to explore. These issues exist in other levels, but you really feel it in the Columbia arc. While the levels and the sandboxes are surprisingly big for the time, the gameplay itself is really rudimentary. There's very little the player can do to interact with the environment. There are no ways to distract guards or knock out non-targets, and nor are there really any creative ways to eliminate your primary targets. The sandbox in its most primordial essence is here, but unfortunately there's very little to play with. The only real choice the player has in most of the hits is what gun do you want to shoot the guy with.
Don't do this! I need backup!
Or limiting yourself to how many guards do you want to kill this mission, because you don't really get penalized for killing hostiles, you only get penalized for killing civilians. So you can clean out an entire level and not really get punished for it, as long as you're only shooting people who can shoot back at you. The enemy AI is also pretty bare bones. It's not always apparent what they'll notice or not, which can make them feel kind of schizophrenic. I caught on pretty fast about some of their quirks, like they seem to have near 360 degrees of awareness unless you're in sneak mode. Like they've got their personal space on lockdown. I also noticed that the AI was very sensitive about what you have in your hands. Like, obviously, running around with a weapon just dressed normally would raise suspicion, but even when you're wearing most enemy disguises, you still have to be careful with what you're seen with. Certain outfits are only allowed to carry certain things. If you're dressed like a soldier, no one's gonna bat an eye when you walk around with like an AK-47, but so help you God if they see you with anything other than what they themselves are carrying. Like I said before, what makes them feel kind of schizophrenic is what they'll notice or not, and I think how weird sound propagation is kind of comes into play here. Like, how far any given sound can travel and who's going to notice it can be esoteric. Whenever you're taking somebody out with a gun, it feels like a coin flip whether or not somebody somewhere is going to notice, even if the gun is silenced. Like sometimes you would just, I would think, like I would look around and there would be one guy, and then you'd shoot him, and then just somebody else, like his death scream would alert somebody somewhere. I would get the pop-up that a guard has been alerted by a death scream, but nobody would be there, and it's like, who the fuck? There is some random dude on this map right now that is really fucking triggered, and if I don't find him, he's gonna make problems for me. I think the only weapon that is truly silent is the fiber wire, but it's also a pain in the ass to use because of its wind-up time. Like, the only way I really found to use this thing is, like, if somebody's staying still, you can, like, just walk up behind them and crouch and then take it out and then do all the, wait for him to wrap it around his hands and pull it out. But, like, it's so much easier, even if it does alert people sometimes, it's just so much easier to use the knife. Like, the knife is the secret MVP this time around. And trying to sneak up behind people is such a pain because you're so slow. You're so freaking slow. I found it just, I don't know if this is working as I think it's working, but what I would do is I would go into crouch mode, and then I would just hit shift to run. But sometimes it feels like the game still kind of recognizes that when you stop running, you're in crouch mode, you're in sneak mode. So like, I would just crouch and then sprint up to somebody and pull out the knife and then use it and then just go back to crouching. And a lot of the times that seemed to work. Sometimes it didn't, but more often than not, that would work. Now, in terms of like the actual combat, like the gunplay, it's lackluster, but it's also understandable. Like, this is most certainly not a shooty power fantasy game. 47 folds about just as fast as everybody else, and that's even when wearing body armor. And that location-based damage is just as relevant to him as everybody else, or else it feels like it. I know there's sometimes where it feels like I get shot and then I'm done. The combat and gunplay, like, they feel okay in the small-scale shootouts. Like, for, like, the brief moments where you're just pulling out a gun and taking somebody out, it feels okay. But, like, the louder and the longer a fight gets, the worse it tends to get. All things considered, I was kind of genuinely surprised how smooth the controls were. There's a default control scheme, which is a nightmare. It's like a fixed camera and, like, tank controls. But you can switch to a WSAD preset, like, right out of the box. And most of the keys are rebindable. Once you get it fixed up, it plays pretty smoothly. The only weird thing about it is that run and walk are different keys. Like, you don't hold the run key and the W key in order to run. You hold a run key and 47 runs forward. Which, honestly, all in all, it came in handy because running hasn't been made illegal in this universe yet, and you're going to be doing a lot of it, so only having to hold one key was nice. There are a few things I can gripe about, like how close you have to be to doors to, like, use them, or, like, how close you have to be to pick things up. And I got tripped up a few times trying to use an item, but couldn't, because you can't use an item from 47's inventory. You have to take it out of his inventory and put it in his hand, and then you can use it. Aside from that, I would say, like, its controls have aged more gracefully than what you would expect for, like, the first attempt at, like, an idea of a game, if that makes sense. A very important aspect of this game is its ragdolls. I already spoke earlier about how the dev team made it a priority for the engine to have ragdolling bodies, and this was most certainly the right move. It immediately makes the game stand out from its peers at the time. It's never not funny to see these assholes flying around after getting shot. And not only that, but it also adds like a sense of weight and impact to the combat that its contemporaries just didn't have. On top of which, it also adds like a sense of tension when you have to like drag the bodies around. It's good. It adds a lot of subtle flavor to the gameplay that if this game didn't have it, I would probably have a lot more bad things to say about its gameplay overall. It really is like the special sauce that kind of makes all this work. For this to be one of, if not the first game to use ragdolls like this, it pulls it off exceedingly well. And on top of ragdolls, it also has some like early cloth physics with things like 47's tie, like moving as like you move around. Also, we have working mirrors, which are always nice touches. I'll always point out a working mirror. Never forget what they've taken from you. While reading up on the development of this game, there was one aspect that kept coming up when the devs would talk about Codename 47, and that was that the team made it with console gaming sensibilities. The devs were so used to working and developing for consoles that things like mid-mission saving didn't even really like occur to them. So you get these weird holdouts of console design like continues. The continues are especially strange because they don't really work. Like, most levels, when you die, you can hit spacebar to respawn, and it'll respawn you somewhere in the level. And you can do this, like, 2 or 3 times. I think it's dependent on the difficulty and the level specifically. While it is nice not to have to restart every mission every time you die, you also just occasionally spawn back in to only immediately start getting shot at. Like, the spawn point, it'll just spawn you close to the dude that just killed you, and then he just turns around and domes you again, which is honestly more frustrating than just dying. Now, it's not all that bad, considering the missions are generally only supposed to take around 10 or so minutes, but it just feels weird. Like, I remember it was like an hour into the game, and I didn't even realize there were continues. I hit the spacebar accidentally, thinking it would just like restart the mission, and then it spawned me back in. I was supremely confused as to why this would be in this kind of game. It feels weird. I don't know. It's strange, and they knew it too. So that's yeah. The music is done by Jasper Kidd, and it's pretty dang good. It's very atmospheric without being overpowering. It does a really good job setting the tone for a lot of levels. The ambient tracks are very calm and airy, but also has like a hint of like uncanniness. While the combat tracks are like heavy drum loops, and they do a good job like punctuating a fight. I'm still not very good at describing music, so here's some of it. Something that surprised me while researching was to learn that the same guy has been voicing 47 for over 20 years. 47 is voiced by real-life bald man David Bateson, and it's just always been this guy, and boy howdy has our boy come a long way.
Hello, sir. What can I do for you?
I need to use the bathroom.
Bateson's portrayal of the character is definitely strange in this one. He sounds confused and almost pained to talk most of the time.
This place seems quiet. Where do I go for some action?
It's like he sounds like a group of raccoons in a people suit trying to pass as human, which would honestly explain some of his behavior. Despite the weird delivery, Bateson has like a really nice voice. It's deep and really smooth, and it's a good pick for 47. And it's interesting playing the newer games and seeing just how kind of far he's taken the character.
Made a reservation for 2 days.
And what was the name, please?
Mr. Tobias Reaper. Checking in. Name's Tobias Reaper.
So, a little history with me. I've played almost every Hitman game at this point, but only ever beaten the first two, like, the reboot games. There are many reasons for this, paramount of which was my stubbornness to only play games on the hardest difficulty in some misguided attempt to prove some sort of gamer credibility, only to be met with the realization that I am indeed bad at video games. Now, like, there are some games that genuinely are better if you play them on the highest difficulty, like Stalker and the Thief titles come to mind. Actually, those are the only two I can really think of. Okay, well, the point is that the Hitman games are pretty fucking hard by default, and the pursuit of some misbegotten gamer cred would only rob me of many a fun experience. Only later in life would I finally learn that gamers have no credibility.
Booyah!
I had a pretty good time with Codename 47. There are lots of flaws and shortcomings of its gameplay, but there is a glimmer of something great here. A glimmer that IO would continue to unearth and polish in the titles to come. The primordial ooze of a Hitman game is here, and while not fully formed, it's grown vestigial limbs and tiny half-formed grabbies of emergent gameplay, and they're feeling around, and they're getting gross little handprints on everything. It was fun to explore around the maps and figure out what you're supposed to do to kill your targets, and the ragdolls were really great, and they would act as a showrunner for an era of gaming with really good fucking ragdolls. Overall, Codename 47 is still a pretty fun and novel experience that only hurts to play sometimes. And that is it. That is another one down. Welcome to 2025, everybody. I know this is technically the second video of 2025, but it's the first one written in 2025 and recorded in 2025. So yeah, welcome to that. Yeah, I got nothing. Alrighty. Thank you for your time. I appreciate all of you immensely. I hope you all stay safe and take care, and I will see you in the next one. Nothing does the mind better than a little bit of fresh air and a good vantage point.